while we're here.
Yeah, it's true. Like, getting everyone on the same page isn't always easy.
Right. And truth.pdf actually brings up some roadblocks in the search for truth. Like how complicated it can be, all the nuances, and how much time it takes to actually figure things out.
Totally.
And then there's the whole idea that truth can be subjective, you know?
Yeah.
What's true for me might not be true for you. It all depends on our experiences, our beliefs.
Exactly. And the document kind of proposes this balancing act, you know?
Between what?
Between trying to find the truth and actually doing something about it.
Okay.
It suggests, like, starting with a consensus that everyone can agree on, even if it might not be the complete absolute truth.
I see.
And then refining those decisions as we learn more.
So more like a stepping stone.
Yeah, exactly. It uses this example of, like, crisis management during a pandemic.
Oh, like COVID.
Yeah, remember those early days, how everything was changing all the time?
Oh, yeah. It was, like, impossible to keep up.
Well, in situations like that, if you wait for like absolute certainty before doing anything, it can be disastrous. So, based on what we knew then, there was this consensus about, like, mask mandates.
To slow the spread.
Right. And even though people had different opinions about, like, the types of masks and how well they worked, that initial agreement, it let us act fast and maybe even save lives.
Makes sense. And then as more research came out, they changed the guidelines.
Exactly. So it shows how consensus can be this dynamic thing, you know, always evolving.
Okay, I get that. But how does this whole consensus idea apply to something as personal and, like, deep as NDEs?
It's a really good question. It goes back to how NDEs are both universal and personal, right?
Right.
People from all walk of life, they report similar core experiences, but they make sense of them through their own unique lens.
Okay.
Maybe the takeaway isn't that everyone has to agree on what happens after death, but more about recognizing that shared humanity that these experiences highlight.
So less about the specifics of what people see or hear,
Yeah.
and more about the fact that we all seem to have the capacity for these profound, transformative experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe that shared capacity, that common thread, it can be a foundation for building a more compassionate and connected world.
I like that.
But, you know, we can't ignore that truth.pdf also points out that truth itself can be tricky,
Tricky how?
full of, like, paradoxes and contradiction.
Paradoxes? I love paradoxes. What kind of truth paradoxes are we talking about?
Well, there's the classic one, the liar paradox. It says, this statement is false.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one.
Right. So if it's true, then it has to be false. And if it's false, then it must be true.
Yeah, that one makes my head spin a little.
It's a great example of how language and logic can get all tangled up.
What else?
Then there's the relativity of truth. The idea that what's considered true, it changes depending on, you know, your culture, your context.
Oh, like what's true in one society might not be true in another.
Exactly. Even scientific truth, it evolves as we learn more.
Right, like how we understand the universe now is totally different from how people saw it like centuries ago.
Exactly. And then you have this tension between pragmatic truth and absolute truth.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sometimes we got to act based on what's practical, what seems most likely true, even if we don't have all the pieces.
Like back to the pandemic example,
Right.
acting on partial information was better than waiting around.
Precisely. Sometimes those decisions, they might not perfectly align with some ultimate truth, but they can be the best call given the situation.
Okay, so with all these truth paradoxes, how do we even deal with them? Do we just say truth is whatever we want it to be?
Well, there's a more nuanced way to think about it.
Yeah.
The document suggests accepting that truth can be subjective in some areas, like ethics or culture,
Okay.
but in other areas, like science, we got to aim for those verifiable, evidence-based truths.
So truth can be multifaceted, it depends on the context.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we give up on accuracy and evidence-based thinking.
Exactly. It also highlights how important it is to keep updating our understanding of truth as new information comes along.
So always be open to new evidence and be willing to change our minds.
Exactly. It's a very scientific approach.
Yeah.
You know, testing, refining, adapting.
Okay, so we've got truth paradoxes, the challenges of finding truth, and the need for consensus.
Right.
How does all this tie back to NDEs and what they might tell us about life and death?
Well, NDEs, just like truth itself, they can be both illuminating and elusive.
Okay,
They give us a peek into a realm that's beyond our everyday understanding,
I see.
but they also make us question our assumptions about consciousness and reality.
It's like they're saying, hey, there's more to existence than you think.
Exactly. Maybe wrestling with these mysteries, embracing the unknown, That's what can lead us to a deeper understanding of what it means to be human.
That's a pretty deep thought. But before we get too lost in, like, existential stuff, I want to go back to something we talked about earlier.
What's that?
The comparison between Wikipedia and X community notes, those collaborative models.
Oh, yeah. That was a really interesting part of the document. What were your takeaways?
I was fascinated by how they show these different approaches to knowledge building, to truth seeking, in our digital world.
Yeah.
Wikipedia, with its massive network of volunteer editors and its focus on neutrality, it's trying to build this, like, comprehensive and reliable encyclopedia of human knowledge.
It's like a modern-day library of Alexandria. Always growing, always changing.
Exactly. And then there's X Community Notes, where it's all about tackling misinformation head-on.
Right, by letting users add context and corrections to tweets that might be misleading.
It's more reactive, less centralized. It relies on the wisdom of the crowd to weed out the fake stuff.
And what's interesting is both platforms, they use a form of consensus despite their differences.
How so?
Wikipedia has its editing process, its ways of resolving disputes.
And X Community Notes uses algorithms to highlight the most helpful and trustworthy notes.
It's amazing how they both tap into the power of collective intelligence to make sense of this overwhelming amount of information out there.
Makes you wonder, what if we applied those same principles, the collaboration, the consensus building, to other parts of our lives?
Yeah, what could we achieve? It's a really thought-provoking question, and one we should definitely think about as we wrap up our deep dive. But first, let's take a minute to reflect on what we've uncovered so far.
Yeah, we covered a lot. The science of dying, those mind-blowing NDEs, the challenges of truth, and the potential of collaboration for building knowledge.
It has been quite a journey. But before we finish up, I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on.
Ooh, I like where this is going. Lay it on me.
So, if NDEs suggest this deeper interconnectedness between us, and if collaborative models show the power of collective intelligence,
yeah,
could it be that consciousness itself is evolving towards greater unity? That the driving force is one of harmony, not division?
Whoa, that's a big one, and definitely something to explore further. But hold on.
No need to wait. Let's jump right in.
Right.
What are your initial thoughts on that? Does the idea of consciousness evolving towards unity resonate with you?
Yeah, it's a really cool thought. Like, we talked about how NDEs hint at this connection that goes beyond just us as individuals.
Right.
And then how those collaborative models, like Wikipedia, they show what we can do when we pool our knowledge.
Right.
So this idea that consciousness itself is, like, moving towards unity, it kind of clicks.
It definitely fits with the idea that cooperation and collaboration, they've always been what push humans forward.
Yeah.
From, those early hunter-gatherer groups to, like, the whole interconnected world we have now. Working together, that's how we survived, how we got to where we are.
And if you think about it, like, even on a basic biological level, we're all connected.
Oh, absolutely.
Same building blocks of life. Our DNA is almost identical. We all depend on the same planet to keep us going.
We're all part of this big web of life.
Exactly. So maybe this urge to be unified, it's, like, baked into who we are.
It's a fascinating idea, but as a scientist, I gotta ask, how do you even measure something like that? What's the process? How does it actually work? And what does it mean for how we see the universe, our place in it?
Yeah, those are some big questions. But it's exciting to think about, right?
Absolutely.
Like, what if these NDEs are tapping into something fundamental about reality? Something that suggests a more, hopeful future for us.
A future where we're more in tune with each other, with the planet. It's definitely a possibility worth exploring. And it speaks to the power of NDEs to challenge our thinking, not just about life and death, but about, what it means to exist.
Totally. So as we wrap up our deep dive into these mysteries, I want to bring it back to you, the listener.
What really grabbed you today?
Did anything we talk about connect with your own experiences, your beliefs?
And maybe even more importantly, how can these ideas inspire you to, live a more meaningful life?
Because if there's one thing NDEs teach us, it's that life is precious.
And those connections we have with each other, that's what really counts.
So go out there, cherish those people you love, let go of old grudges, live with purpose. And who knows?
Maybe you'll find your own piece of the truth puzzle along the way.
Don't forget, this is just the start of the journey. There's always more to learn, more to discover.
Keep asking those big questions, keep searching for answers, and never lose that curiosity about the world and your place in it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.